This will be a reading of Tourmaline by Phantom Rose 96, a Steven Universe fanfiction. A link to the original story will be provided in the description. Tourmaline, Chapter 1. Steven rested his chin on one of the couch pillows, shoeless feet kicking in agitation. He hugged the cushion closer as he glanced up at the clock. It was dim and featureless in the darkness. He squinted to make out the time. A couple minutes past midnight. Steven let his head sink into his mouth was buried in the pillow, body flat against the floor. "I'm getting worried." There was a shift in the couch's pile of blankets, a hesitant moment of silence in the air.
"Me too,"
Connie echoed.
"What happens if my mom finds out I'm staying here without supervision?"
"No, I mean the gyms are usually back by now." Steven rolled onto his side. He stared blindly at the warp pad. "They don't like going on missions at night."
"Well, where did they go?"
Connie sat upright, her messy hair puffed around her head, a black cloud silhouette.
"Is it far?"
"The kindergarten, and I don't think so." Steven sat up, legs crossed. He hugged the pillow in his lap. "We went last week, and we found Peridot there. Peridot got away, said she was done with the kindergarten. But the gyms think she might have been lying, so they went to check, and that was this morning."
"And do you think something happened?"
Steven shrugged in the darkness. "Maybe they're just being careful and checking everywhere. Or maybe they found more clusters. Even if the mission goes long, Garnet or Pearl usually warps back to put me to bed." Steven heard a shuffle of sheets as Connie got up from the couch. She crouched by her bag, breaking the silence with the harsh unzippering of its side pocket. Her hand surfaced with something thin and long, tapered at one end and beveled at the other. She clicked it on. A large bright circle bloomed on the far wall.
"I brought this in case we wanted to do shadow puppets, but it'll be helpful if we want to get around in the dark."
Steven threw back the last of his sheets and pawed about for his shoes. "You want to go after them?"
"That's what you were suggesting, wasn't it?"
Connie shined the light on Steven, watching him nod once. Maybe we can make shadow puppets against the injectors while we're there. That way your flashlight will be extra useful."
"Injectors?"
He snagged his shoes and slipped them on to both feet. "Yeah, injectors. They're these huge, creepy things with sharp legs. And they're all over the kindergarten. And they plant gems in the earth. They're not on, though."
"Oh, cool."
She slipped into her boots, toes scrunching on the inside. She smoothed down the bunches in her nightgown. It didn't seem worth changing out of pajamas for a search and rescue mission. Steven was ahead of Connie, but he moved cautiously away from the warp pad. His squinted eyes were focused on the screen door.
"Lion!"
Steven called. He waited, listened, and cupped his hands around his mouth.
"Lion!" "Are we bringing Lion?"
Connie carefully stepped her way to the light switch. She flipped it and was met with a brief shudder of brightness before the lights completely caught. Steven was already moving to the front door, which gated something large and pink beneath the porch light. "Nah, Lion kinda decides for himself what missions he comes on." Steven unlatched the thumb lock. Lion bounded in as Steven eased the door open, circling and sniffing the boy. Steven laughed in response. "But I keep stuff in him." Connie watched as Steven hopped into Lion's mane, disappearing entirely for 4 or 5 seconds. She'd taken a hesitant step forward when he popped back out, gasping somewhat, and hauling a large pink scabbard behind him. "This is my mom's sword. It's bigger than the one Pearl had you training with, but it's also magical, so it's probably way better." Steven rested the scabbard on his knee and slowly unsheathed the sword. "She won an entire war with it." Connie lighted down to Steven. She eased it out of his grip and waited. She gave it a few swings and thrusts in the open air. The blade was bathed in slatted light from the porch, the blind stratifying it into silver slits. It gave off a constant faint glow, a constant faint hum.
"This is fine. It actually almost feels lighter."
She reached for the scabbard, which Steven happily turned over.
Good, Stephen said with a smile. We've got both Mom's shield and sword then, and Peridot doesn't have any of that. I'll bet we can take her.
He faltered, thinking.
If we need to.
Yeah. Connie nodded, hair messy and pajamas loose on her body. She held out her free hand to Stephen, who high-fived it in return. She raised the scabbard strap over her head, wiggling it down until it rested comfortably on her hip. Her lips curled into a smile as she noticed Stephen staring, until he broke into giggles.
What?
Connie demanded. She spun on him, hands to her hips.
It's just funny. You've got this awesome sword and awesome scabbard, but you're still just standing here in pajamas.
He stuck a finger out.
You've got fluffy sheep all over you.
Connie blushed and pushed him off. He beamed up in the slatted light.
It's a distraction technique. First, I distract them with my sheep. Then I slice them.
That's silly.
And this is a sleepover. Are we going to go save the gems or what?
Stephen nodded eagerly, before snapping his fingers.
Oh, almost forgot.
Stephen plunged back into Lion's Mane. Connie watched him go with a jolt. He re-emerged with a crinkling, vacuum-sealed bag in his hand.
Chips,
he announced, flaunting the bag.
In case we get hungry.